We're here in Soho. It's one of the nicest and most popular parts of the city. The last place you'd expect a crazed attacker to go after women in two separate incidents and assault them with a bottle. And we're learning exclusively now that this wasn't his first time targeting women in violent attacks.
So unsurprisingly, it has happened again. A man with a long history of mental health issues, a man with a criminal record that includes multiple different violent attacks, had been out on the streets and he attacked a woman, 26-year-old costume designer, in the city of New York with a broken bottle, slashing her so badly that she is in critical care. Greetings and salutations, everyone. My name is Sean, and today we got to talk about the latest developments in this Muslim Brunson case, because it turns out that this guy had not one, not two, not three, but 36 mental health hearings in our mental health court, a diversion program away from the criminal justice system, and all 36 times those hearings absolutely failed. In addition to that, our soft on crime criminal justice system turned him out onto the streets time and time again. It's ridiculous. It's absurd. This is Arkham levels of law enforcement going on, where all the craziest of the crazies just get released back onto the streets only to reoffend, only to be beaten down by Batman and sent back to Arkham, and I'm sick of it. But before we get into this, I want to thank everybody who supports this channel via actualjusticewarrior.com/join.
Give me the money. Give me the money. Okay?
Crime scene tape cordoned off the chic and usually safe area at Grand and Worcester Streets in Soho.
So right off the top, I do want to point out that Soho is typically and traditionally a very nice neighborhood in the city of New York on the island of Manhattan. And of course, it's an area that I could not afford to live if I wanted to, unless I lived in a box. That being said, it is quite noticeable, because I have those eyes to notice things, that this individual committed this attack in this supposedly chic and safe neighborhood. And you can see in the B-roll that they're running that there's graffiti on these different various buildings. This is what happens even in nice neighborhoods when you pull back law enforcement. This is what happens even in nice areas when you stop having people serve time after they get arrested repeatedly due to bail reform. These are the consequences of these democratic policies. And by the way, right now at the state level, there's a push to add a little bit of common sense, recidivism rules into bail reform, and the Democrats in the State House and the State Assembly are fighting that tooth and nail. So it's only going to get worse. This is the perfect example of this, and this is also the example that we see time and time again of what the left thinks mental health care actually looks like. We have to divert people away from the criminal justice system to these mental health courts, but guess what? 36 different mental health hearings that didn't get this guy off the streets, despite the fact that he has a serious violent history.
Police tell us about 3 Monday afternoon, 46-year-old Muslim Brunson, who is homeless, smacked a 29-year-old woman in the back with a bottle. She was not injured and ran away.
I just watch my back. I'm very cautious all the time.
A short time later, police say Brunson attacked another woman who is 25 years old, slashing her so badly with a broken bottle, she was rushed to Bellevue Hospital. She's in critical condition. He was taken into custody by police. Later, detectives worked the neighborhood for additional video and evidence.
So 2 things. First and foremost, that detective right there has a bright yellow band-aid on his forehead. For some reason, he decided to not go with a more subtle color, and I just wanted to highlight the fact that that exists. But secondly, the victim in this particular case is a woman from Arizona who moved to New York City in order to be a costume designer, and a great number of people are saying that this is the type of person who would vote for these democratic policies, so you get what you vote for. And to a certain extent, based on, again, the image we have of her, the profession that she's in, that appears to be true. That being said, that doesn't necessarily mean that we should not talk about this, that we should not try to change these policies, because the fact is, these policies impact everyone. Again, you're in Soho, a nice neighborhood, walking through that particular area. Some tourists might be in there that are not even from New York City, and you have these homeless repeat offenders, these attackers, on the street lying in wait at the moment that they're going to snap. And what ended up happening right here is that 2 women were assaulted. One of them faced a deadly assault, and now this mentally ill person, guess what, is arrested and has been charged with attempted murder.
Unfortunately, I just feel like women especially have to be really on their toes about where they are and their surroundings and just, being very cautious.
Now, look, I don't want this to be misinterpreted as me coming down too hard on this particular woman who's talking about how women need to be alert and aware of their surroundings, especially as compared to men, because the fact is we could all do with a little bit more awareness of where we're at and who's around. But the fact is, in this particular case, the city and the state of New York needs to be more aware of these people that run through the system time and time again, repeat offend in multiple different violent instances, yet they keep getting a break. The mental health court system needs to realize that maybe, just maybe, if you see somebody 36 times and he has a history, a violent history of attacking people, that you should probably, have some consequences for this particular individual. But of course, this is under bail reform. There are no consequences, and we also have extreme barriers that prevent us from being able to hold mentally ill people. And I just want to point out that the standard is supposed to be a danger to yourself or others. This guy has multiple violent assaults where he has proven to be a danger to others, and yet he is on the streets because that standard, for whatever reason, is basically unenforceable. And by the way, organizations like the ACLU and the New York Civil Liberties Union back up these people, say that they have a right to live on the streets, live in squalor, have their mental state degrade to the point where they either attack somebody, or in the case of Jordan Neely, who, by the way, was sent to a mental health facility, but they didn't want to lock it because that would abridge his freedom, end up dead on the streets. These are all preventable, or many of these are preventable, especially when you see the lengthy rap sheet that this individual has and the multiple different contacts with not just the criminal justice system, but again, with the New York mental health courts.
My police sources tell me that Muslim Brunson is a recidivist who mainly goes after female victims. In October of 2023, my police sources tell me he shoved a 30-year-old woman into a moving train. She survived, barely. A year earlier, he was arrested for shoving a woman into a heavy metal subway platform pillar.
So hearing that really does piss me off, and it should piss you off too, because what we have right here are multiple different violent instances where this person has been proven to be a danger to others. He has a penchant for targeting women and children, by the way, which we will get into a little bit later in this video, and yet he's out on the streets. In 2023, he shoved a woman onto a train platform, aka attempted murder, but for whatever reason, in 2025, early 2025, he is out on the streets again. And again, this could be attributed to people being pushed towards mental health courts rather than actually face consequences in the criminal justice system, along with the fact that we end up having these mental health courts that really don't want to incapacitate people, remove them from society, even though they absolutely earned being removed from society. But the thing is, we got to go to this New York Post article so you can hear about his other criminal offenses, because you'll realize that something is definitely awry, and the local news telling you about that 2023 incident after the 2022 incident doesn't give you the full breadth of information that you need to understand, because we have to target the laws that enable this, and not filling you in significantly damages that effort. So here's the timeline of a ticking bomb from the New York Post. August 17, 2019, a 911 call is made involving Muslim Brunson, with him hearing voices and wanting to harm others. According to law enforcement sources, he is taken to Beth Israel Hospital in Manhattan, and obviously a guy named Muslim going to a hospital that was called Israel did not end up resulting in anything good. Just kidding. But this is where things get serious. September 17th, 2019, 1 month later, Brunson accosts a 13-year-old strap hanger on a Brooklyn subway, robbing the kid of his phone and then shoving him off the train when he fights back. Brunson is freed under a special no jail program that instead mandates mental health treatment, then goes before a judge 36 times over the next 3 years to ensure that he is complying. So here you have somebody who robs and assaults a 13-year-old boy. By the way, when the mother found out that this guy was still out on the streets, she spoke about how the Brooklyn district attorney betrayed her because he assured her that he was going to face consequences through the mental health system and this would be a better option. She was absolutely shocked by these facts that he was out on the street. But let us take that 3-year timeline with the 36 appearances and keep it in the back of our mind, because remember, this happened in late September of 2019, so he should have been frequently going to these appearances until September of 2022. Well, guess what? Here are all the offenses that he committed in between when he did that assault and was put in this mental health treatment that definitely works. It's definitely better than incarceration. Diversion programs are A+, first class all the way. December 9th of 2020, Brunson is reportedly hearing voices telling him to harm others, and again is transported to Beth Israel Hospital. December 16th of 2020, he's hearing voices telling him to hurt other people and to not take his medication, and is taken to Lincoln Hospital in the Bronx. June 18th, 2022, another EDP report involving Brunson is made saying he needs his medication. He is taken to Beth Israel Hospital. July 4th, 2022, again, not even a full month later, Brunson violently shoves a female civilian NYPD employee on the subway, breaking her eye socket, according to sources. July 6, 2022, 2 days after the assault, he's tracked down by cops in the subway system for the crime and proceeds to kick one of the arresting officers near the right knee and spit on the police during the arrest for this felony assault. Brunson is then booted from the mental health program, and his 2019 case about assaulting and robbing that 13-year-old boy and this 2022 case are rolled into one, and he is convicted, and he starts serving a sentence which says here a year behind bars, but I believe the sentence was actually longer than that, and Brunson was paroled on August 18th of 2023. Now, normal people understand that when you are paroled from a prison, when you are let out back into society, this is to be considered a conditional release. Any contact with law enforcement should result in the revocation of that parole and should have you return to prison. However, New York State passed in this time period a law called Less is More, which doesn't get as much attention as bail reform, but it basically makes it damn near impossible for probation and parole officers to violate people's parole. So what do we ultimately end up seeing?
In October of 2023, my police sources tell me he shoved a 30-year-old woman into a moving train. She survived, barely.
Well, not included in this timeline is what was reported by the local Fox affiliate, which is in October of 2023, he shoves a woman into a moving train, and yet he is let out, and yet he is not held based on the danger involved in that crime due to bail reform, and of course the combination of less is more, making it impossible for him to have his parole violated. And then he continues. Again, in January of 2024, he is arrested for lewd conduct. This should be an easy probation violation, but it is not initiated against Muslim Brunson. And then in February of 2024, his parole ends. So the city and the state of New York knew full well in advance that this person was violent, had a repeat violent history, and he was seriously mentally disturbed, and it was well documented. They even tried forcing him into a mental health treatment program, to which he was a part of it for 3 years until he committed another serious violent crime, but they didn't hold him accountable after removing him from the mental health program and into the criminal justice system in any serious way. And that's what brings us to the April 7th incident, where he ended up bashing a woman over the head with the bottle, and then he stabbed another woman in the neck, nearly killing her. And again, I will ask the question, is this better for anyone that this was allowed to occur?
My friend recently also got attacked in the East Village by someone. Like, it's
Just a random
just
thing.
random. Like, he was obviously mentally disturbed, homeless, like had prior incidences and everything. So it's scary.
Hear all the time from these lefties that mental health is not a crime. Mental health is not something that should be addressed by the criminal justice system, even though, by the way, many of these lefties would avoid each and every homeless person they saw 100% of the time because they never want to actually live up to their luxury beliefs. But this is what happens when you remove somebody who is a serious threat and drop them into an ill-equipped mental health system that, by the way, all these different so-called civil rights organizations have been advocating to limit time and time again. They didn't violate his parole. They didn't hold him on crimes that should have been bail eligible because of bail reform. All these different various laws ended up leading to Muslim Brunson being released out onto the streets time and time again. And the fact is, people can say, oh, you voted for this, therefore you deserve this. And this may be true for one of the victims. Maybe she supported all this stuff if we're going into odds making and stereotypes and whatnot. But the fact is, New Yorkers have voted time and time again against politicians that have backed bail reform. Lee Zeldin nearly won the governor's race in 2022. Eric Adams, despite the fact that he sucks in a lot of different ways, this was the guy who was running the toughest on crime in the Democratic primary. And guess what? all those neighborhoods that are afflicted by crime voted for Adams over the progressives. So what we see is that people try to push back against these policies. People try to demand change, but the system constantly moves in this direction. And it's only going to get worse if we do not take these examples and make positive change based on them.
The NYPD tells us that Brunson was arrested on second-degree attempted murder, second-degree assault, and weapons possession charges. After all this, women here are asking us, what was he doing on the streets in the first place?
And again, if you're sympathetic to people like Muslim Brunson who appear to have real mental health issues, it does not help them for you to just release them onto the streets until they commit a crime that's so heinous, that's so disgusting, that we end up locking them away for life. This is absolutely disastrous policy from top to bottom, and I'm sick of all these different various people trying to morally flex on me because they don't engage with reality and they're talking about their ideal fantasy world where we just help all these mentally ill people and suddenly they become sane enough to take their medication, and we never, ever look at police or law enforcement of any kind or the correction system as a method in order to address these issues. But you know what? Those are just my thoughts. I want to know what you guys think down in the comments below. If you like this video, then show them by leaving a like, subscribe for more content, follow me on the social media, support me via the support links in the description of this video. This has been me talking about the same old in New York City and New York State. Till next time.